All right, it's a Tuesday night, not a Wednesday night. I got to get my days straight and get organized. It's a Tuesday night, not a Wednesday night, and we're here for a Panther-Lair Show. Decided to switch it up since Pitt is hosting Vanderbilt in basketball tomorrow night, Wednesday night, and didn't want to go against that. Don't want to compete against a Pitt basketball game. Plus, it's not like we could really talk about the game as it's happening. I mean, I'd be distracted looking at the TV over there in the Panther-Lair.com offices. Plus, Wednesday night, the night before Thanksgiving, right? All you kids go out and see all your old friends from high school, right? Isn't that what you do? Go out to the bars and see who's back in town from college. See who college has been kind to and who's been, doing what you do in college. Now, I don't know if we have much of the, recent high school graduate audience here on the Panther-Lair Show, but just between the basketball game, mostly just because of the basketball game. Figure we move it to Tuesday night and, mix it up a little bit. It's the holiday week, Thanksgiving week, and, just get back to our old stomping grounds of Tuesday night. So I appreciate everybody who adjusted and stopped in here on a Tuesday night live stream, the Panther-Lair Show. A couple quick notes, of course. Panther-Lair.com is a website you need to be on. Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. It's the most comprehensive source of Pitt sports news on the internet. Football, basketball, recruiting. We cover it all at Panther-Lair.com, and message boards where, if you enjoy the conversations that we have here on these live streams, if you enjoy the chats that we have, the back and forth, the discussion and all of that, well, Panther-Lair.com message boards, that kind of stuff is happening all day, every day. So, you like Pitt sports, you like talking about Pitt sports, go hang out at the message boards at Panther-Lair.com. You'll find a lot of other people like you who like having those conversations pretty much all day, every day. And that's not an exaggeration. I mean, when we get done tonight, I'll do a couple work things, check the board a little bit, see what's going on, and go to bed. When I wake up, there'll be all new posts in the morning, new replies, new threads started. It's just ongoing. It's nonstop Pitt conversation at Panther-Lair.com. So if you're a Pitt fan, and I presume that you are not watching this live stream for my looks or listening to the podcast for these dulcet tones, I'm guessing it's because you're a Pitt fan. Well, then you need to go to Panther-Lair.com and join that conversation there. And I also have to tell you about Home Field because they have an amazing sale going on right now. I've got the vintage rock look right there. You can't hate that, right? Home Field is just outstanding. Their designs are great. The quality of the shirts. I'm a broken record with this, but it's because these are the things that really are the best part of Home Field. It's the designs. Look at that. How can you not like that design? I don't know if you can see, like, the letters have a blue outline, the vintage rock holding his football. It's just, the design is great. And then it's on a really high quality shirt. This is a soft, well-fitting shirt. It's kept its shape, through countless washes. I value high quality t-shirts. It means a lot to me. And Home Field is some of the highest quality t-shirts that I've found. And so what I need to, I've told you about that a million times. What I really need to emphasize with you right now is that starting on Friday, Black Friday, all the way through to Cyber Monday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, 20% off their entire site at homefieldapparel.com. All right, 20% off. You don't need a promo code or anything like that. It's 20% off. If you shop Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday at homefieldapparel.com, you get great pick gear. You can get great whatever college you want because they got a lot of schools on there. You want to buy a gift for another sports fan? You want to buy a gift for yourself? You can get 20% off. Great designs, high quality shirt, 20% off. What's missing from that equation? Just you. So make sure you get there Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Black Friday through Cyber Monday, 20% off. Of course, I think, people like Home Field that sell Pitt gear are probably experiencing a little bit of an uptick recently. You see, we got the picture. I pointed in the wrong direction. That picture right there. Pat Narduzzi holding the ACC Coastal Championship trophy. We talked about it on Saturday night. In the postgame show, Pitt beat Virginia on Saturday 48-38 at Heinz Field to clinch the ACC Coastal Division title. Panthers will now play in Charlotte for the ACC championship game in 2 Saturdays after they finish the regular season at Syracuse this week. They'll play either Wake Forest, which is most likely, NC State, or Clemson. Wake Forest just needs to win and they're in. If they lose, they are out. It'll be NC State or Clemson, depending on the outcomes of their games. Well, depending on the outcomes of NC State's game. I forget who NC State plays, but I think if they win, they're in because Clemson has South Carolina. So they're done with ACC games. They need NC State and Wake Forest to lose, I think, to get in. But look, regardless of who it is, and we can talk about which opponent you would like to see the most. I mean, Wake Forest obviously has the best offense out of those three, but also the worst defense. Clemson clearly has the best defense out of those three, and the worst offense. And NC State is the Goldilocks right there in the middle. That, boy, just kind of scares you the most. It scares me the most, at least, because they have a better defense than Wake Forest and a better offense than Clemson, and a quarterback who is, Devin Leary, I think he's gotten overshadowed this year only because there's been such exceptional quarterback play in this conference, whether it's Kenny Pickett, whether it's Sam Hartman, whether it's Brennan Armstrong, whether it's Sam Howell, whether it's Tyler Van Dyke, whether it's, what's his name at Louisville even is playing well. I mean, there's some great quarterback play in this league right now, and Devin Leary's up there. He might not be in the Pickett-Armstrong category. He might not be in the Hartman category, but he's not far off from those guys. He's playing at a really, really high level, and that's scary. That might be the team I want to see the least. Although I think if you're Pitt, you probably don't want to see Clemson again. I mean, you were able to get by. You got one touchdown in that game from an intercepted shovel pass that goes back 50 yards. I don't know if you're going to be quite so lucky again to have a play like that. But again, I think Pitt's offense had maybe more success against Clemson's defense than just about anybody this season. Certainly more than Georgia, number 1 team in the country. So I don't know. I mean, I think there's pluses and minuses to all those matchups. Wake Forest, if Pitt ends up against Wake Forest in Charlotte, it's probably going to look like what Saturday night's game looked like, 48-38, and you hope that you're the one who has the ball at the end. That you can score the last touchdown and win. And you hope that your team is not the one that makes the big mistake. Because for a while, Pitt was the team that made the big mistake against Virginia on Saturday night. They made the big mistake against, really, 2 of them against Miami, and it cost them. They couldn't come back from that. They made the biggest, and Kenny Pickett was the guy who made the mistake. He made the big mistake against Virginia, and they were able to overcome it because their defense stepped up and made a few key plays. But, I would guess that if Pitt were to play Wake Forest, it would look something like that. That Wake Forest offense is tough, and that, I'm not going to pretend that I'm, all that smart about these things, but what I've read about Wake Forest is they said that their mesh point is very slow. You guys read about this? The mesh point of the quarterback putting the ball in the running back's belly and waiting until the very last possible moment before pulling it and throwing it or letting the running back have it. It's a very slow developing thing, and it develops slowly because the quarterback's reading what the defense is doing. And if that sounds familiar, it's because that's what has killed Pitt over and over and over again this year and in previous seasons. And Wake Forest looks like they might be the best ones at it. So of putting the ball in the running back's belly, letting those linebackers commit to the run, pulling it back, popping it over their heads, bye-bye, 50-yard touchdown. Sounds familiar, right? Sounds scary, right? So Wake Forest, I think, as much as anybody, is primed to take advantage of this Pitt defense and this Pitt defense's tendencies and what they've been beat at in the past. But their defense is also terrible. And Clemson scored a bunch of points on them. And Clemson's offense is not good. So I don't see any reason why Wake Forest will be able to slow down Pitt if that's who they end up playing. But that's 2 weeks from now. We'll see what happens this weekend. It's funny, though, because that whole conversation, everything I just said, lends itself to something I've been thinking about this week. All right? If we had had this conversation last week, if I was sitting here saying last week, well, if we look ahead and we talk about the teams that you do or don't want to see if you're Pitt, who scares you the most, or who do you want to see, or that kind of thing, But we were having this conversation last Wednesday. If we were talking like this last Wednesday, I think we'd all have the same reaction. And we would say, whoa, whoa, whoa. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Right? We would say, let's not get ahead of our... You got to clinch the Coastal before you start talking about who you want to face. And it kind of occurred to me this week. And I mean, it occurred to me because I'm writing this in the 321 column on Panther-Lair.com on Friday. So things that you're going to hear me say here are probably going to sound familiar if you read that column on Friday, because I was just writing some parts of it today and thinking about this idea of let's not get ahead of ourselves. And that's something that we've said a lot this season. And it's something that we've sort of considered a lot. And I think I've said it. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. I think you have probably said it. I think you have probably said it about your own thoughts. And you've probably said it in response to other people. Like somebody who last Wednesday or Tuesday or Thursday or whatever would have been having that conversation of, well, who do you really want to see in Charlotte? Would you rather have Wake? Or would you rather have NC State? Or would you rather have Clemson? Maybe you were in the, maybe you were tailgating before the game on Saturday, and somebody brought it up. So, who would you really want to see? Would you like to see Wake? Would you like to see NC State? And there's a pretty good chance that you or somebody at your tailgate said, hey, man, let's not get ahead of ourselves here. We got to win the Coastal first, right? I mean, probably with a few choice adjectives and adverbs thrown in there. And that's and I think it's reasonable. And I think you can roll the clock all the way back. Geez, I think it was after the Georgia Tech game when things like the FPI started putting Pitt at this high percentage to win the Coastal, high percentage to win the ACC. And as they beat Georgia Tech, and then they beat Virginia Tech, and then they beat Clemson, and it starts, the FPI has like a percentage for Pitt to make the playoffs. It's like a 2.7% chance of advancing to the finals, And we would read these things and we'd start talking about them and getting excited about them and saying, wow, look at this. Can you believe this? It would always, the voice of reason would always swoop in though and say, hey, let's not get ahead of ourselves. And it's understandable. You don't want to put the cart before the horse, right? Isn't that the cliche? You don't want to put the cart before the horse. But right now, and this is what kind of dawned on me today, actually. It was earlier today. Kind of flashed on this idea that, like, we don't have to worry about putting the cart before the horse anymore. The horse has arrived, and it's pulling a cart that has a Coastal championship in it. The things that we didn't want to get ahead of ourselves, we got to wait for this, and we got to wait for that. Those things have arrived. Those accomplishments have happened. It's the same thing with, there's the picture right there. Which way do I need to point? There he is. Kenny Pickett. I got to just stop trying to point at the pictures because I'm backward on my screen. Kenny Pickett. Ooh, Heisman. Ooh, Maxwell Award. Davey O'Brien. Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Well, he's a finalist for the Maxwell Award now. He's a finalist for the Davey O'Brien Award. Jordan Addison. Wow, he could be a Biletnikoff winner. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Well, he's a finalist for the Biletnikoff Award now, for the Biletnikoff Trophy. One of 3 finalists. Okay, a legitimate candidate. We're not getting ahead of ourselves anymore by talking about these things. I tell you what I did. On Monday, I guess it was yesterday, I wrote an article about Pitt's bowl game possibilities and the likelihood that they could end up in the Peach Bowl if they were to win the ACC championship game. And I had quotes from the Peach Bowl CEO, a guy who's actually from Pittsburgh. Grew up in Beachview, went to South Hills Catholic. It's now, I think it eventually merged to become Seton LaSalle. So he's got Pittsburgh roots. So it was fun to kind of chat with him. He's really excited about the possibility of getting Pitt. And I ran this article on yesterday, with quotes from this guy. But the reality is I did the interview last week. I interviewed him on Thursday or Friday. But I didn't run the article on Thursday or Friday because I didn't want to get ahead of myself. Got to win the Coastal first. Had to beat Virginia before that's even a real consideration. That's something to even talk about. And I held it. And I knew I was running a risk. I knew that if they lost to Virginia, that interview with the Peach Bowl CEO, not worth a whole lot anymore. Because it was going to be really tough for them to win. They were going to need help. They were going to need Virginia Tech to beat Virginia to still, win the Coastal. And so I knew I was taking a risk. And if somehow they lost to Virginia, then that interview, whatever amount of time I did, 20 minutes or 15 minutes, whatever I spent talking to that guy, was all going to be for naught. And I would not get any content out of it because, it was no longer, it was a more sort of it was a more distant possibility. So I held it. I didn't want to get ahead of myself. But now it's a real conversation to have. It's a real conversation to have about where Pitt could go. About Pitt possibly getting to a New Year's Six Bowl. About Pitt winning the ACC championship. About Pitt winning 10 games in the regular season for the first time in 40 years. About Pitt possibly winning 12 games this year. About Kenny Pickett being a Heisman Trophy candidate or finalist, about him, possibly winning the Davey O'Brien Award or Maxwell Award, about Jordan Addison winning the Biletnikoff, about all of these things. We are no longer in danger of getting ahead of ourselves. It's happening. It's really happening. And the conversation we had last week, where we talked about like Pitt is relevant on the national scene now. Pitt football does matter in the context of college football nationally. They are, in the college football playoff rankings that were announced earlier tonight, they are the highest ranked ACC team. They are the number one team in the conference, according to the College Football Playoff Selection Committee. They're number 17. Doesn't exactly reflect well on the ACC that their top team is number 17, but that's beside the point. They're ahead of Wake Forest, who's 18. They're ahead of NC State, who's 20, and Clemson, who's number 23. Wake Forest dropped from 10 down to 18 after losing to Clemson. And now Pitt is the top-ranked team in the conference, which puts them relevant. That makes them relevant nationally. And it's like we said last week, it's been a long time since you could say that. And like I say, we're not getting ahead of ourselves anymore to talk about these things. Pitt, I think, we're past the point of a small sample size. We're past the point of, well, let's wait and see what happens. Still, you got to see what's going to happen in the ACC championship game. That's going to go a long way in determining if you view this season as a success or not. Because, look, if they win in Charlotte, they are upwards of 90% going to the Peach Bowl. It's almost, it's not going to say it's a guarantee, but it's almost, I would consider it a very strong likelihood that the College Football Playoff Selection Committee is going to put them in the Peach Bowl. And that's actually an interesting distinction. I didn't really realize this. I think I knew there was a selection process, but I still kind of viewed even the New Year's Six Bowls as kind of having that, all the things we always talk about with bowl games of, well, is it appealing to get this team? Do they travel well? And all that stuff. That's kind of irrelevant because the bowl game doesn't select the teams. The ACC can't lobby for the New Year's Six Bowl or placement of its conference champion. The College Football Playoff Selection Committee does that. And I think as the ACC champion, they're guaranteed to get a New Year. I should say the ACC champion would be guaranteed to get a New Year's Six Bowl, and they would try to. Typically, historically, they've tried to place Power 5 champions in a New Year's Six Bowl that's sort of a fit geographically, and none of them fit better for Pitt than the Peach Bowl in Atlanta. And so, that's the most likely destination. That's what's sort of on the table for Pitt if they're able to go to Charlotte and win the ACC championship. Who their opponent is kind of a little bit more up in the air. If Cincinnati doesn't make the semifinals, then they'll be in the Fiesta Bowl. I think that is a guarantee. And then you probably look at teams like Notre. If the committee is then going to place Notre Dame in one of the New Year's Six Bowls, they wouldn't put them in the Fiesta Bowl for a rematch with Cincinnati. They would avoid the rematch, which means Notre Dame would go to the Peach Bowl. Because the Rose Bowl and the Sugar Bowl are already spoken for with their contractual obligations with the Big Ten and Pac-12 and the Rose Bowl and the SEC and the Big 12 and the Sugar Bowl. And so you have these two at-large bowls in the Fiesta and the Peach. The ACC champion's going to one of them, because the ACC isn't going to have a team in the college football playoffs. That's. I don't think Pitt can climb from 17 up to 4, or any of these teams can climb from where they are up to 4. except with the most extreme, less than 1% chance of circumstances. But I mean, the ACC champion is going to end up in one of those two bowls, and most likely the Peach Bowl. So then you look at 3 other at-large spots to fill, assuming the conference champions, of the SEC and the Big Ten. Pac-12 champ the Pac-12 champ will go to the Rose Bowl. The Big Ten champ, if the Big Ten champ goes to the college football playoffs, then the highest ranked Big Ten team will go to the Rose Bowl. SEC, Big 12, sort of same deal with the Sugar Bowl. It'll be the champs of those 2 leagues or the highest ranked teams from those 2 leagues if the champs from those leagues go to the playoffs. And then that leaves 4 at-large spots in the Peach Bowl and the Fiesta Bowl. At large, with the understanding that Power 5 conference champions will be there if they haven't fit into these other games. Long story short, if Cincinnati doesn't make the playoffs, it's pretty likely chance that Pitt will play against Notre Dame in the Peach Bowl. And I know people don't get too excited about seeing Notre Dame again when Pitt plays Notre Dame fairly often, but it'd be a marquee matchup. It would be a long-standing rivalry. It would be cool to see Pitt play against somebody like Michigan. I don't know if Michigan State would be a likelihood because I didn't see where they dropped to in the aftermath of their beatdown against Ohio State. Oh, they're down to 12 now. So they're unlikely. I mean, unless they make a big climb back into the top 10, they're not likely to get into an at-large bid. So, I mean, Notre Dame, Michigan, but even Michigan would probably go to the Rose Bowl, to be honest. So, you're looking at Notre Dame as probably the most likely option, unless Alabama were, I don't know. So, there's a lot of different, I mean, they wouldn't end up against Alabama, but Sugar Bowl, and I don't know. There's a lot of moving parts there. But for Pitt, what's on the line is this, all right? Go to Charlotte, win the ACC championship game, and probably end up in Atlanta for the Peach Bowl, which is a pretty good spot for them, I would say, even though they've been in Atlanta each of the last 3 seasons, including this year. It's a different stadium, at least. Mercedes-Benz Stadium. It's pretty exciting, right? So that's kind of my overall big thought for this week, I guess, is that, we're past the point of having to be concerned about looking too far ahead, about getting ahead of ourselves. I think that's not a concern anymore because we're at sort of we're at the point that we've arrived to sort of the end of the season. There's 1 game left in the regular season. It's a conference championship game and then a bowl game. And Pitt's play, not this week, but in the next, in the week after that, will determine whether they end up in a New Year's Six bowl or something a little bit less. And those options, there's a lot of options there. All right, I want to jump into the chat here. It's always fun to have these conversations in the live stream. Listen, if you want to make sure your comments get responded to, make sure your questions get answered, you can always be a super chatter like Kevin Plowcha did. You can click that little $sign at the bottom, show a little support for Panther-Lair.com. We appreciate that big time. And Kevin, you're our first super chatter of the night. We appreciate it. He says, highest ranked ACC team. Heck yeah. Happy early Thanksgiving. Not sure when we'll be able to chat again. Hopefully we'll beat Vanderbilt tomorrow night. As far as chatting again, we'll have a post-game show on Saturday after the game at Syracuse, and we'll be back to our regular Wednesday nights. So after that, Panther-Lair Show rolls on. As far as Pitt Vanderbilt, I don't know what to make of that game yet. I need to really kind of dig in for a little bit more research to do our staff picks on Panther-Lair.com because I'm not sure what to expect. I mean, Vanderbilt seems like a pretty decent team. They shoot a lot of threes, and that's dangerous for a team like Pitt. I don't know if they make a lot of threes, but they shoot a lot of them. And we know Pitt's defense is susceptible to three-point shooting. And so if Vanderbilt comes in and starts firing up threes, if they get some to fall, that's going to put a lot of pressure on Pitt's offense. And this is not the kind of offense that you want to have under pressure. They're just not very productive. They're not very explosive. And again, this isn't a new revelation. And I feel, and I also don't think it's an overreaction to anything we've seen recently, because I think it's what we all believed before the season even started, that they weren't going to be a great offense and a great offensive team. Now, what is interesting to me is the emergence of Nate Santos in that game against Towson last Friday night. I don't know what he'll be able to do as the competition increases. Obviously, you're playing a major conference team today. You're going to get into ACC play at some point in the future. Weird random game against Virginia late in the in December, and then you get back into the regular conference games after that. In a couple weeks after that. So we'll wait and see on Nate Santos until he gets in against better competition. But I do know this, all right? When they were playing against Towson, before he even started firing threes, and he ended up knocking down 4 of them in that game, before he even started shooting those, you could see that the opportunities were there. Against the zone that Towson was playing, you could see the opportunities for Nate Santos. He was standing all by himself a lot. They got the zone moving. They were passing the ball well to move the zone and shift it. I think if you're going to face teams that are going to play zone, and I don't know what Vanderbilt's going to try and do against Pitt tomorrow night, I would think until Pitt show... I would think if you're any team that has zone in its arsenal, you're going to use that zone defense against Pitt until they show that you can't. Nate Santos should be the guy who can show opponents that they can't use a zone exclusively. I think if Vanderbilt comes out playing a zone tomorrow night, I think you need to run plays for Nate Santos. Run plays to get him open shots. Because right now he's the best three-point shooter on the team. I don't know if that equation changes with Ethiel Horton or not. Horton should be the best three-point shooter on the team, but Horton's not here. And so while Horton is gone, and maybe even if Horton comes back, Nate Santos is your guy from outside the arc. You've got to get him the ball with opportunities to shoot it. And if there's a zone, if a team is playing zone, pass well and run plays that shift that zone to get Nate Santos open looks and feed it to him. I mean, because once he hit 1 or 2, in the first 3 games of the season, he was 2 of 9 from 3. And he didn't even attempt a 3-pointer against Wilmington. And so that 2 of 9 all came in the first 2 games. And then, like I say, no attempts in the 3rd game against Wilmington. And so then he comes out and he goes 4 of 8 against Towson. And I think once a couple shots started hitting, he hit 1 in the season opener and 1 in the next game. He hit 1 against the Citadel and 1 against West Virginia. So, with 8 misses in there. I think he was 1 of 3 one night and 1 of 6 the other night. For a shooter, for a young shooter, a freshman, that can get in your head a little bit. And you need a couple shots to go down to loosen you up, to open up some of that confidence. And I think when he played against Towson and a couple shots started going down, he started getting into the flow a little bit. He started feeling a little bit better about his shots. He started feeling a little bit better on defense. He started doing a little bit more and being more active. And Jeff Capel talked about that. Capel did the classic coach thing, all right, where a guy hits a bunch of 3-pointers and then he tries to find everything else to talk about in Nate Santos' game. How he did this or how he did that, how he rebounded, he smashed down and all this different. Man, he hit some threes. But I think to Capel's point, hitting a few of those threes loosened Nate Santos up on the court and enabled him to get into the flow, that he wasn't overthinking on how he's going to hit these shots, which was probably the case through the first few games as he's adapting to the college game and all of that. I think Nate Santos settled in after he knocked down a couple shots, and I think that's something he should be able to do on a nightly basis if teams are going to play zone. And if they go to man, then you've got the opportunities you want for Femi Odikale and John Hughley. But if they're going to zone, I mean, there's only so much you can do to try and bang your head against the wall to try and beat a zone. Right now, you don't have a Nasir Robinson. You don't have a guy like that. Or even Audice Toney, who could maybe get into the zone, and definitely Justin Champagnie, who could get inside the zone and hit jump shots and try and attack it that way. You don't have that. So what you've got to do is run plays to get Nate Santos open and give him the ball and let him shoot. Okay, and once he knocks a few of those down, the opponent's going to have to come out of the zone. If they're going to have to go to man, and then you can really start doing the things you like to do, which is feeding Hughley and having Femi Odikale drive. I mean, I think that's what Pitt basketball needs to do. That's what this team needs to do this year, and certainly in the near future. Like the immediate future, as in tomorrow night when they play against Vanderbilt. That's what they need to do if they want to have a chance there. All right, more super chatters coming in. We appreciate it. Byron Fleck. Let's see, Byron, what'd you say? Any thoughts about James Franklin's contract and how it impacts Pat Narduzzi? Going rate for head coaches now is $10 million a year. You know, I don't know what to make of James Franklin's contract. I mean, these coaches, like, I don't know. You know, I don't know. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that yeah. We're not gonna. You know what? No, I'm not going to talk about James Franklin. I don't care about James Franklin. I don't care about Penn State's contract situation. This is a Pitt podcast. We're gonna keep the focus on Pitt. As it relates to Pat Narduzzi, look, if he goes and wins the ACC this year, I think you make a show of giving him an extension. I think you do it. You know, and you may or may not like that. I think some fans will like it. Some fans won't. But I think if he wins the ACC and gets to a Year 6 bowl, win or lose, you make that move. You know what I mean? I think you give him an extension. It's a good show for recruits. It's a good show of support for him. It's a vote of confidence. And then he can really keep building the program. I think that's what you do. Are they going to need to pay him $10 million a year? I don't think Pitt can pay him $10 million a year. I don't know if Narduzzi's going to hold their feet to the fire for $10 million a year. I don't know if I think he's that kind of person. And that's no disrespect to anybody who gets paid. You should get paid for the job you do. You know, if you do a good job, you should get rewarded, handsomely for it. I don't know if Narduzzi's the kind of guy who's going to really push for a number like that. But if there's other competition, and I'm not sure if there will be, for him, who knows? Pitt might have to be a little more aggressive. Michael B., super chatter, one of our regulars. We appreciate you, Michael. He says, a few questions. Which team do you think Pitt will play against in the bowl game? And what's your thoughts on Will Jeffers? I was expecting a lot more from him at this point. Like I said, I think Notre Dame is probably the most likely, but I think the thing to watch is whether or not Cincinnati makes the playoffs. If Cincinnati gets into a spot in the semifinals, that changes up the possibilities of what could happen. If Cincinnati doesn't finish in the top 4, if Cincinnati doesn't get picked for a semifinal spot, and the way they're going to do it, I think they're announcing, so it all gets announced on December 5th. I think they announced the semifinal teams like right before the NFL games, maybe in the noon hour. And then they announced the other New Year's 6 bowls at either halftime of the first NFL game or between the two NFL games or something like that on Sunday, December 5th. And so if Cincinnati doesn't make the playoffs, they'll go to the Fiesta Bowl. It seems like that's sort of predetermined that the Group of 5 champion, the top-ranked Group of 5 team, if they don't make the playoffs, will go to the Fiesta Bowl. If that happens, if Cincinnati goes to the Fiesta Bowl and Notre Dame is in the top 10 and eligible for or top 10 or top 12, whatever it has to be to get them eligible for an at-large bid, then Notre Dame will go to the Peach Bowl. You know, they can't be placed in the Rose Bowl or the Sugar Bowl. Those bowls have their contractual obligations with the Big Ten and the Pac-12 and the SEC and the SEC and the Big 12. So Notre Dame, if they get picked as an at-large team, has to go to the Fiesta or the Peach. And if Cincinnati is placed in the Fiesta, the committee won't stage a rematch between those two teams. So Notre Dame goes to the Peach, and if Pitt wins the ACC championship, Pitt goes to the Peach, and they get Notre Dame. If Cincinnati does make the semis, if Cincinnati goes to the playoffs, that opens up the possibilities of where Notre Dame could get placed. In which case you could see, who knows, maybe like an Ole Miss or something like that in the Peach Bowl. But my guess is, So I think that's the thing you want to watch for, in that first announcement when they announce the semifinals on December 5th, you want to watch and see where Cincinnati ends up. If they end up in or if they end up out. Tyler Buchanan. Oh, your question about Will Jeffers also. Let's see here. One of my thoughts on Will Jeffers. So, Will Jeffers to me is one of the most intriguing guys on this roster. I think he's got a lot of pure talent. I think he's got basketball IQ. I think he's still developing. His defense is really coming along, and he's playing really well defensively. His rebounding is really coming along. He's really rebounding well. the offense is the thing where he's got to improve. The offense is the area that hasn't developed yet. And I actually asked Jeff Capel after the game on Friday night, the Towson game. I said, what would be Will Jeffers's ideal role offensively? What would be sort of the best case scenario for him? What would you like him to do? And he said, well, we'd like him to be like a 3-and-D guy. You know what I mean? Shooting threes and playing defense. I don't know if I see that role for him, but he is a non-traditional player, or maybe just his fit for a traditional role hasn't really evolved yet. I mean, to look at him, and I think he's built to be sort of a traditional 3, but I don't know. I mean, maybe like Capel said, maybe he needs just to develop the outside game. Who is like I guess Rudy Gay was more of like a 4 or something like that. But I mean, somebody who could, a bigger guy, like a bigger guard, smaller forward, a wing like that, who could get outside and shoot from outside and rebound and play tough defense. I mean, I think that's what his game is. And I think there are little signs of his development. I think his improvement on the defensive end and on the glass, I think, is hugely encouraging. He just needs to improve his offense. His offense needs to take some steps forward. He needs to get better there. And I think that'll be an ongoing saga for Will Jeffress. I do think that for a decent amount of his career, at least in the early stages, I could see him being the kind of guy who gets a lot of his points off, rebounds or loose balls or fast breaks or things like that. Not necessarily traditional offensive sets that are run for him or something like that. I think he's more of a, like I say, kind of not dirty buckets, but kind of, cleaning things up and not necessarily in the, in the flow of the sort of the traditional offense. He's second chance type of guy. I could see that happening. Tyler Buchanan, super chatter, we appreciate it, says, Happy Thanksgiving, Chris. So I have a problem. My company's Christmas party is the day of the ACC championship. My boss always does an awesome party for us. What do? I already purchased tickets. And then he follows up, for the context of the party, he closes the business with 2 nights in a hotel, party bus to and from the hotel, starting at 11 a.m. Saturday with Dave & Buster's, then doing Gateway Clipper that night. Oh, man. This is a tough call, Tyler. I don't know what to tell you, man. I mean, and you already purchased tickets for the holiday party or for the ACC championship game? I mean, I guess I would say this, Tyler. What is your confidence level on Pitt getting back to the ACC championship game at some point in the near future and having this good a chance of winning? If right now, I would say they're the favorite to win the ACC championship, right? I think, regardless of who they face, whether it's Wake Forest, NC State, or Clemson, they'll be favored to win the ACC championship. If you see that happening again if you see that happening again in the next few years, go to the holiday party, keep an eye on the phone, try and find a TV, watch the game, and have fun. If you think this is an experience you don't want to miss out on because if this is an experience you don't want to miss out on because you don't think it's going to happen again anytime soon, well, tell the boss that you got to do this 1 year. I mean, it sounds like you've been working at your job for a little while, for a few years. You'll probably be there for a few more years. Tell your boss you won't miss another one, but this one you got to go. But hey, I don't know what to tell you. That's a tough one. Let's see here. Another super chatter jump in. Who was it? Byron Fleck. I answered your question. Oh, John Verbis. Did you have a question, John? Let me see if I can find. How many injured players are possible for December 4th? Yeah, so injuries are a real problem for Pitt right now. The injuries are adding up. I mean, let me make sure I don't miss anybody. I mean, you've got Taysir Mack, Jalen Barden, Keyshawn Camp, Melky Stovall, Jake Cradle. Those 5. Oh, Gabe Hoy. Right? So that's 6. And Camp played like 3 snaps against Virginia on the first drive. He didn't start, but he came in after a few plays, played like 3 snaps, and then came out. And so, I mean, basically you would say those 6 guys effectively didn't play. Like I said, I know Camp did play, but only for a few snaps, and that was after missing last week's game. So, the Thursday night game. So that's 6 guys, 6 significant contributors. I mean, Cradle and Hoy are starters in the offensive line. Camp is a starting defensive tackle. Mack is a starting wide receiver, and Barden and Stovall are key parts of the wide receiver depth. I would say right now, all right, I don't know about this Saturday. I would say as far as December 4th for the ACC championship game, I don't think you're going to have Taysier Mack. I don't think you're going to have Jalen Barden, and I don't think you're going to have Jake Cradle. I would say, given that we saw Melky Stovall in a boot on the sidelines for the Virginia game, I would say it's probably unlikely for him. Gabe Hoy, I believe, was in uniform, so which makes it seem like he could have gone in if he needed to against Virginia. So I would say he's a possibility, and then Keyshawn Camp, I would say he's a possibility. I would think, and this topic has come up about possibly resting guys or maybe not playing guys who are banged up, guys who could probably use the rest to get healthy for December 4th, holding them out of this Syracuse game. I don't think they'll do that with very many guys. I would say Keyshawn Camp will be one that maybe they err on the side of caution to try to have him healthy for the ACC title game. I guess Izzy Abanikanda would be another one we would add to the list. He played, obviously, the first half, had a huge touchdown on a kick return, and ran really well as a running back, too. He played, 3 plays in the second half, came out after the interception. Pat Narduzzi said he tweaked something. I mean, I think this is the kind of game at Syracuse where Abanikanda and Rodney Hammond and even Vincent Davis can go off and have big games. There's something about that turf up there. It's just guys go fast. I think A.J. Davis is the only 100-yard game in A.J. Davis's career was at Syracuse, I believe, in 2019. I think it was 2 years ago. LaRod Stevens-Howling had a big game up there. This is an opportunity where I think these guys, I think Abanikanda and Hammond and Davis can carry the load. And I know we want, you want to see Kenny Pickett put up a ton of yards and Jordan Addison put up a ton of yards. These guys are trying to make their case for those awards. But maybe your best bet to get out of this game with minimal injuries and minimal time spent, in Syracuse, nice fast game that moves along quickly, is just to hand it off and establish the run. That's what Syracuse is going to try and do. So you guys could do your part too, Pitt, and just keep this game moving. I would think Abanikanda will be back in. I would think Abanikanda will be back in this game, but that remains to be seen. All right, let's see here. Let's get into comments and questions. What else you guys are talking about tonight? Let's see. Pittsburgh Sports All the Time says, do you think a win over Vanderbilt tomorrow would be a statement win and prove that the Citadel was just a fluke? Statement win, I guess, because you'd be beating another major conference team. I don't think the Citadel was a fluke. I think this team, if they don't commit to defense and playing smart on defense and playing hard on defense, they can be beat by anybody. I don't think they would lose to, mid-major conference teams very often. I don't think they would lose to every mid-major conference team they face. But Citadel played smart and together, and Pitt really didn't that night. And Pitt is not talented enough to play that way and overcome it. And so regardless of what happens against Vanderbilt, I wouldn't say it was a fluke. It's like the Western Michigan game for football. That wasn't a fluke. They played poorly. They played poorly. They had a bad game plan, and they executed poorly on top of it. It's not a fluke. It's part of who they are. It's part of it's part of the story of this season. And I'm not the type that's going to really dwell too much on, oh boy, if they could have just imagine if they beat Western Michigan. They'd be ranked a lot higher. Maybe they'd be on the doorsteps of the top 10. There's no reason. This team absolutely should be 11-0 right now. Sure, of course. But nothing that's happened means that game was a fluke. It happened. And it didn't happen in any kind of fluky way. You could make a case for flukiness against, Miami with the safety call, or flukiness against Miami with the, really uncharacteristic interceptions by Kenny Pickett. But the Western Michigan game, it wasn't a fluke. It happened. because of the way Pitt played that day. And the Citadel game wasn't a fluke. It happened because of the way Pitt played that day. And chances are they'll have games like that again in the future, where they just don't play together, they don't play tough, they don't play smart, and they don't really commit to defense the way they're going to need to be able to do, or the way they're going to need to do to be able to win. And so they'll win more games this season. I don't know how many wins they'll end up with. We'll find out as the competition continues to increase and get tougher. But no matter what happens, I don't think there's going to be a point where I look back and say, boy, the Citadel game, that was a fluke. I don't think it was, regardless of what happens against Vanderbilt tomorrow night. Let's see here. Doug Wood says, how important do you think the Syracuse game is Saturday? I still think that one of the main reasons people felt Pitt backed into the Coastal in 2018 was the blowout in Miami the next week. I don't know. I think part of the reason people continue to say that Pitt backed into the Coastal in 2018 is that they finished the regular season 7-5. It wasn't a very good team. They weren't ranked. They didn't play well for most of the season. But what they did was they played really well in their conference games, at least the first 7 of them. Or not even the first 7. They played poorly in the first one, which was the loss at Carolina. And then they... I think they played... Yeah, they played Georgia Tech, actually. Okay. They won their first one, lost their second one, and then went on a really good run with Syracuse and Duke and Virginia Tech and Wake Forest. They went on a really strong run over those games. But people look at the overall picture of the fact that they were 7-5. People even look at the fact that they went 7-7 overall and just sort of assume, they backed in. Even though it's not true. They clinched the Coastal title in the next to last week of the season, just like Pitt did today. I think if Pitt ends up losing to Syracuse, and I don't expect that to happen, but if they do, I don't think people are going to say that Pitt backed into the Coastal Division. I don't know what I would make of this game. I think if they were to go to Syracuse and lose, it would be disappointing because they missed an opportunity at winning 10 games in the regular season for the first time in 40 years. It would be disappointing to sort of break the momentum that they've got right now, but I don't think this team is incapable of recapturing that momentum when they go to Charlotte. One thing I've sort of believed in all along with this team as they've faced some of these big games, you know what I mean? Going to Tennessee, going to Virginia Tech, playing Clemson, playing Carolina on a Thursday night, playing Virginia, this past week. I've really believed in the leadership on this team, particularly with the seniors, guys like Kenny Pickett. I feel like they've set the proper tone for the rest of the team, and I hate to say like sort of ridiculous cliches like they won't let this team lose. I mean, obviously they can lose. They have lost. So the seniors are not perfect. But I mean, I think I look sort of week after week in most of these games and I see Kenny Pickett willing the team to victory and leading the team to victory. And he doesn't do it alone. Lucas Krull had to catch that touchdown pass in overtime. Jordan Addison had to catch that last touchdown pass against Virginia. Daniel Carter had to throw the block for that last touchdown pass against Virginia. The running backs had to do what they did against Clemson and Virginia Tech and Georgia Tech. Pickett's not doing it alone, but he's leading the team to victory. He's carrying. I don't even say carry because I don't want to say he's carrying the team because it makes it sound like the rest of the team's not doing their part. They are. But there's a leadership on this team that first of all, I think will prevent them from overlooking this Syracuse game. I don't think Kenny Pickett and the other seniors on this team will let that happen. And there's a leadership on this team that I think even if they lose to Syracuse, the seniors on this team and Kenny Pickett and those guys won't let there be a hangover, won't let it affect how they go into Charlotte and how they prepare for the ACC title game. So I think it's big because I think it would be huge for Pitt to finish 10-2. I mean, they haven't had a season with less than three losses in the regular season in 40 years. They haven't won 10 games in the regular season in 40 years. They haven't won 10 games overall in, since 2009. Was that 12 years? There's a lot at stake here. You know what I mean? There's a lot on the line that Pitt can sort of achieve. They've broken history a number of times this season, and here's another opportunity to do it. Let's see here. Scroll down. Sports World PA says, I'll play anyone in the ACC championship game except North Carolina State. We just can't beat them. Yeah, I hear you. It's funny to me there's part of me that almost thinks it'd be poetic or cosmic or something to get NC State in the ACC title game. And for the first time, Pitt finally beating NC State in something would be on the biggest stage possible. What's it been? It's been since the first year Pitt joined the conference that they beat NC State in anything? I mean, at least in basketball or football. I know they've lost one football game to them. I think they beat them in basketball in like 2013 or 14 with Jamie Dixon. But it's been a long time since they've defeated NC State in anything really notable or significant. I don't know about some of the other sports at Pitt beyond football and basketball, but it would be fitting, like I say, almost poetic for Pitt if they could finally get over the NC State hump and do so, like I say, on the biggest stage possible. I mean, that would be a pretty good storyline. Royce Beacom says, why is Kenny Pickett in an empty set with 7:34 left in the final quarter on 3rd and 2? Then he gets sacked with 5 rushers. Yeah, I mean, there were things that Pitt did in that game that I didn't understand. I mean, and actually, we talked about it, Royce, after the game. I mean, as well as they ran the ball, it didn't make sense to continue to throw. And Kenny Pickett's your guy. I know this is how the offense is built. This is what the offense is built to do. But I mean, you've got running backs who are really succeeding. You know what I mean? The running backs are moving, and I don't know. I mean, they had success throughout the game. I don't know why you don't keep running it, particularly in the fourth quarter. Now, obviously, it all worked out, but I think Mark Whipple made some questionable decisions along the way there. Brock Madonic says, do you think Pitt adds any more recruits for this 2022 class? Yeah, I think so. I think they'll get at least 1 or 2 more. They don't have a ton of spots, and they're not going to have a lot of spots. This class is not going to end up with like 20 guys. I think they'll get 1 or 2 more. We'll see exactly who it ends up being. I'm not entirely sure, and you never know what kind of surprises come out right before signing day or right before that second signing day. But I think they'll get a little bit more. Sports World PA says Syracuse is a huge trap game for Pitt. They have a top 25 defense and probably one of the best running backs in the country. So this is what this is what I mean. I don't think it's a trap game in terms of Pitt overlooking Syracuse. I don't think it's. I don't think like Kenny Pickett and those guys would let their teammates overlook Syracuse. I just don't think. I don't see that happening. Now, Syracuse is definitely legit. I mean, Syracuse is something to watch out for. I think Syracuse, like you say, their defense is really good. Pretty good. They get after the quarterback. They pressure the quarterback. And their running game is big time. Sean Tucker's a really good running back. Garrett Schrader, the quarterback, can run as well. But, I mean, this Pitt defense has been pretty good against the run. It's sort of what they're built to do. Teams that have beat them, like really beat them, have done so by taking advantage of their tendencies to gear up against the run. This should be a solid matchup for Pitt. You know what I mean? This should be a pretty, almost a favorable matchup for Pitt. There's a reason they're 2 touchdown favorites in this game. They're minus 13 on the road, against the conference opponent. That's a giant number, but that's where they are. And I think it's because, they're built to stop the run. And, their offense, it's not going to be easy. Games at the Dome haven't been easy for Pitt for a long time. I was actually looking the last 4 times they went to the Carrier Dome, 2013, 15, 17, 19. Pitt's 2-2 in those games. And the other 2 games, they only won by 1 score. The 2 games they won. So it's, one game they won by 1 point. The other game they won by a field goal. It's not easy up there, and I don't expect this game to be easy. I don't think they're going to win by 2 touchdowns. They haven't beat Syracuse by that much since the 2016 game, that 76-61 game. So I think it's going to be a challenge, but I don't think it's a trap game in the sense that they would overlook Syracuse. I don't see that happening. Let's see here. Scrolling down through some more questions and comments. Eric Rogers says, Chris, we keep hearing of a possible transfer quarterback for next year. What's your thoughts? Are you sold on Nick Patty? I like him. I don't know what to expect out of that situation, to be honest. I kind of like Nick Patty, too. I'm not sure if he's the kind of quarterback you can put the whole offense on and just ride him the way you did with Kenny Pickett, but there aren't a lot of guys out there that you can do that with. Here's the thing, though. All right, you can like Nick Patty, you can like Davis Bevel, you can like Nate Yarnell, and you can like whoever else that they've got on the roster. But as this season continues, and Kenny Pickett's a Davey O'Brien Award finalist and a Maxwell Award finalist, and he should end up a Heisman Trophy finalist, as this season continues and all those things happen, okay? And with the numbers he's putting up and the way this offense is operating, it's got to look appealing to a transfer quarterback. I think there are going to be opportunities there to find someone who would want to come in and play in this offense. Someone good. And so you can like Nick Patty, you can like Davis Bevel, you can like Nate Yarnell, but if you've got an opportunity to get a big-time transfer, you're only going to get one more year with Jordan Addison, right? I mean, I think we all know that. He's not, he's going to play one more year here, and then he's going to go, as he should. He's done everything you should do to put yourself in that position. You're only going to get one more year with him. And you might as well try to capitalize on that if you can get a really good quarterback. Now, maybe it costs you Nick Patty and Davis Bevel, or one of those guys, or maybe both. Then you got to hope that Nate Yarnell is really the guy for 2023. But if you can get a big-time transfer, look, you've got to win now. If you've got an opportunity to get a big-time transfer quarterback who wants to come in and play in this offense and you feel like he can get you to another ACC title game, you bring him in and go with it. If you can get a guy that you feel gives you a better chance of getting back to Charlotte than Nick Patty does or than Davis Bevel does, then you got to go with it. You got to go with him. So we'll see what opportunities present themselves. But right now it has to look appealing. Royce Beacom says, so I agree with your megacast suggestion with Bill Hillgrove Pitt broadcast. That would be spectacular. How can we make that work? Do we have to petition someone? So if you don't know what Royce is talking about, Pitt has been sharing video on social media, video clips from the radio booth. And it's, you're not even seeing the game. It's just a steady camera. It's just mounted there. And you see Bill Hillgrove, and you see his son, who's the spotter, and you see Pat Bostic doing the radio call of some big plays. And they did this after the Carolina game, I think, and they did one after the Virginia game. And it's awesome. It's awesome. I mean, you got to watch it. It's just so much fun to watch it, watching those guys and seeing their reaction. Because they're excited. They're trying to contain it a little bit, but they're also really pumped up. And it's great. And I kind of joked on Twitter that they should do a mega cast, where you could have a channel you could flip to, and that could be, maybe you do like half screen, you know what I mean? You have Billy and Pat on one side and then the actual game on the other. So you can watch the game and kind of watch them and watch their views on it. But I don't know where you would put that. You wouldn't be able to broadcast. I don't think Pitt would be able to broadcast it on any of their social media channel, on like their YouTube or anything like that. But it would be great, though. I would love watching it. Let's see. Scrolling down. See what other comments. Patrick DeSantis says, I think it would be cool to play a team like Michigan or Texas A&M. I mean, that would be, those would be interesting. But the only thing is, like, you're not going to get Michigan, because Ohio State, if Ohio State makes the semifinals, which they should, then Michigan will still probably end up the highest ranked Big Ten team, so they're going to the Rose Bowl. So, and John Waffle H2P says we should play Michigan. I think Michigan would have to, Ohio State would have to drop out of, I guess Michigan would have to beat Ohio State. And if Michigan beats Ohio State and knocks Ohio State out of the top four and they don't finish in the top four, then So if Ohio State drops out of the top four and doesn't go to the semifinals, then they would go to the Rose Bowl. You would need Michigan still to be in like the top 10, top 12 to get picked as an at-large for something like the Peach Bowl. It seems unlikely. I'm not really betting against Ohio State right now. I'm thinking Ohio State keeps rolling and gets into the playoffs, in which case Michigan to go to the Rose Bowl. So that's going to be a tough one. Maybe an SEC team could be a possibility, but that'll probably depend on whether or not Cincinnati makes the playoffs. Will Z says, any idea on what the offensive line will look like on Saturday? Is Hoy coming back? The Ohio State transfer going to play? Yeah, the O-line is going to be a question. It'll be interesting to see. I mean, pretty confident you're going to have Carter Warner at left tackle, Marcus Minor at left guard, and Owen Drexel at center. Right guard and right tackle, the question marks. I would think so. I mean, obviously, this last game they had Blake Zabovic and at right guard and Matt Gonsalves at right tackle, which is what they did without Gabe Hoy and Jake Cradle in the last game. I guess Cradle got hurt against Carolina, right? Anyway, so that's what they went with against Virginia. There was a play or two where Owen Drexel came out. When that happened, Zabovic moved to center. They moved Minor from left guard to right guard, and Ryan Jacoby, the Ohio State transfer that Will mentioned, came in and played left guard just for a snap or two. Gabe Hoy, like I said, he was in uniform on Saturday, which makes me think that he's close. If he's available to play, I think your left side stays the same with Warren and Minor. Drexel plays at center. If Hoy comes back, then you have Hoy and Gonsalves. One of them plays guard and one plays tackle. And I'm not sure what your best setup is there. Hoy might be a better option Hoy might be a better guard than he is a tackle, but he might be a better option at right tackle than Gonsalves right now. Because it seems to me over the last two games that Gonsalves hasn't played great. Not as well as I expected him to play. I think he can be really good, but I don't think he has really done it so far. I expected him to be better in these last two games. So he might be a better option at guard. Ideally, you get Hoy back and you can pick and choose from Hoy, Gonsalves, and Zabovic who you want to play right guard and who you want to play right tackle. Jake Cradle, I don't think will be back at all this season. I wouldn't expect to see him in a bowl game or anything like that. But those other guys, to be some combination thereof. Let's see here. Tyler Buchanan says, Jackie Sherrill told Pat Narduzzi, when you have Kenny Pickett, you leave the ball in his hands when the game is on the line. Okay, I'll have to take your word for that. I think there are opportunities to run the ball when, and I understand. And Tyler follows up and says, you have to trust, Kenny Pickett has come through so many times in 3rd and 4th downs this season. How about this? How about this stat? Kenny Pickett, 36 touchdowns, right? 12 of his 36 touchdowns have come on 3rd and 4th down this season. He's got 3 4th down touchdowns. Now, 2 of them were in this game against Virginia. The other one was against Clemson. But he's also got 9 touchdowns on 3rd down this season. That's pretty impressive. Still think you need to. You still need to establish the run, because I think you've got the backs to do it. I really do. See what else. Anything else to jump in here? Tyler Buchanan says, don't forget about Michigan State. They could take one of those spots depending on what happens. Michigan State, how far did they... Let me see how far they fell. After getting absolutely wrecked by Ohio State. So they dropped they only dropped to 12. I don't know. I'm not sure if they would jump back, how far back up in they would jump. But if somehow it worked out that you got Michigan or Michigan State in a bowl game, I think that'd be pretty interesting. I think those are offenses you wouldn't mind facing, as opposed to an Ole Miss or someone like that. I think you would take Michigan or Michigan State. That'd be perfectly good. I think Notre Dame would be perfectly good, although that tight end is ridiculous. He had a huge game last year against Pitt, and he's a monster again this year. But look, there's a lot of possible matchups, and what's funny is it's funny, like, we're looking at all these other things and what other teams need to do to be able to face Pitt. Now, obviously, Pitt has to win the ACC championship to be in this situation to play any of these games or face any of these teams. But it's funny. I feel like we're looking at it from a different perspective than we usually do. And that kind of comes back to what I said before about we're not really in danger of getting ahead of ourselves anymore. Pitt has sort of established itself to be a certain spot in the division, in the conference, and nationally. And that's pretty fun. I tell you what, if you're enthusiastic about Pitt right now, if you're fired up about Pitt right now, go to homefieldapparel.com. Well, don't do that right now. Wait until Friday. Get a sweet shirt like this, the Vintage Rock. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Black Friday through Cyber Monday. You get 20% off the whole site. You don't even need a promo code. It's just 20% off. Huge Black Friday sale, and they're keeping it going for 4 days. Friday through Monday. Great designs on these Pitt shirts. Super soft, super comfortable. Keep their shape. Perfect. I mean, it's just, they're great. They're great shirts. You got to check it out. Homefieldapparel.com. Go look now. Figure out what you want on your wish list for either the sports fan you want to buy for or for yourself. And then go back on Black Friday or Saturday or Sunday or Cyber Monday or one of those 4 days and place your order so you get 20% off. You can't beat that deal. All right, Panther-Lair.com is the website too. You need to be at Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. There's all these things we talk about during this hour. We have all these conversations all day, every day on the website, Panther-Lair.com, Pittsburgh.rivals.com. Panthers Insider Show on The Fan, Saturday mornings, 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. You can listen to that for more Pitt sports talk. After the game on Saturday night, after Pitt plays Syracuse, that's like a 7:30 game. We're going late. We're going to have a late night post-game show. We didn't do it after the Carolina game because that was a home game, and I was staying at the stadium for a while. Didn't get home till 1 or 1:30. This is a road game. Jim Hammett's going to cover it for us in Syracuse. I'm going to stay right here at the Panther-Lair.com home offices in Pittsburgh, watch the game, and then jump on here and go live for a post-game conversation. So you guys are going to be watching the game. You're going to be having a few cold ones. Let's talk about the game after it's over. So I don't know what time that post-game will start. Maybe 11? Maybe 11:30? I don't know. It depends on how long the game is. If you want to make sure you don't miss the post-game live stream, okay, you need to subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. If you're watching the live stream right now, if you're watching this video later, there's a little subscribe button right there, right down there. You can see it, okay? Click subscribe to the YouTube channel, and that way you'll get a notification whenever we go live. So if it's 11 o'clock, if it's 10:30, it's 11:30, it's midnight, whatever it is, you'll know when you subscribe to the YouTube channel, youtube.com/Panther-Lair.com. Got it? Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the live stream, okay? Because we will be live on Saturday night. Also, make sure you keep an eye out Wednesday morning, the Kenny Pickett Show, new one coming out. This is different from some other ones. We have not done a Kenny Pickett show yet like this one. I think it's pretty fun. I hope you enjoyed. I enjoyed doing it. I hope you enjoyed as well. I definitely enjoyed this. Homer Simpson says, late night show, he's going to be inebriated, I believe is what Homer claims. And hey, man, I think that'll make it even more fun. All right. This has definitely been fun tonight. I appreciate everybody who tuned in to the live stream here on a Tuesday night as opposed to a Wednesday. Got a good crowd, even though we changed the nights, so I appreciate that. Appreciate everybody who listens to the podcast during the week. Make sure you stay tuned on the message boards at Panther-Lair.com. And we'll talk to you again Saturday night after the Syracuse game. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. We'll talk to you on Saturday.